And what's up? Welcome in. A little impromptu GC Live. I am Wes Mitchell. He is Chris Clark. Friday episode of the show. As always, we're brought to you by our good buddy Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network. Give Clint a shout. 803-576-4450. His NMLS number is 71597. There you see Clint's smiling face on your screen if you're watching on the YouTube version of the show, clinthammond.com. Man, hey, mortgage rates are up, dude. They are way up. So I don't know what that means. I know that means that it costs a good bit more to buy a house now than it did a few months ago. But it also could mean get in now before they go up even higher. So if you want to talk to somebody who knows a lot more about that stuff than I do, give Clint a shout, 803-771-6933. We got a few things to get to here today, Chris. I don't know. We don't really have a plan. We just hopped on to check in with you guys, make sure you're doing okay. And I don't even know what to headline. I don't even know what title to put on the show. I just said this is a Friday free-for-all. So if you have questions, we'll hit them. And I did think worth mentioning, though, off the top here, Dylan Lonergan officially announcing his top 5 in South Carolina as expected. I would almost say I would say a lock. The Gamecocks do make it. Stanford, Alabama, Florida, and Ohio State round out the top 5 for Lonergan. And again, man, I think you're sort of seeing him go about this process in a very, I would say, controlled manner. He's steadily chipped away at it. He's taken a bunch of visits. He's taken multiple visits to South Carolina. I believe multiple visits to probably all the schools in the top 5. And now here it is. The official top 5 is out there. No surprises that the Gamecocks make it.
Yeah, no doubt. Long time target, long time mutual interest with Dylan Lonergan. And it's been interesting to kind of watch his list evolve. South Carolina, of course, has been a constant. I mean, I know you remember, Wes, we were watching him throw at South Carolina's camp last summer, the return of summer football camps on campus, and we got to check him out throw, put on a really impressive performance, I thought. Baseball kid. Took the visit to South Carolina for the spring game, checked out the baseball game as you reported. So, a lot of mutual interest there remains with Dylan Lonergan in South Carolina. I think the program that has kind of risen up recently to become a major contender also is Florida. That's a school that has been pursuing Dylan Lonergan, would take Dylan Lonergan. There have been some other schools that have kind of been in and out, but you're right. I thought that was a great way to describe it, just kind of controlled. He's not a kid that's made a lot of impulse decisions. He didn't have a top 32, whatever. He had a bunch of offers, and he's kind of just steadily trimmed that down. And he's certainly taken a very measured approach to it because he's taken lots of visits to lots of different schools, seen a lot of different things. But South Carolina got in on the ground floor here. They got in very early. And so to echo you, no surprise that they are in the mix still very heavily in that final public top 5.
Yeah, I would put South Carolina in the, of the 5, I think they are the stronger, longer category. Like they've been in it for a long, long time. They've had him as a priority for the entire process. And, they are firmly in the mix and have gotten him on campus. A lot of times, Chris, you and I talk about the recruiting process, as a literal process. And you talk about, a guy comes in for an early visit. A guy comes in, for a camp. A guy comes in for a game. So I think obviously it was a little bit slow off the bat for Dylan because of the recruiting shutdown. But as far as coming in last year for the camp, I think he was there like day 1 or day 2. I mean, I remember it being very early in South Carolina's camp process, getting to multiple games last year. Getting back to campus for the spring game. I think Chad Simmons said all total he's been to South Carolina 5 times. So you're really getting a true look at every side of the program, you would say. So I put Carolina as like the stronger, longer, the maybe trending team right now that's worked into the mix that maybe, or I would say probably wouldn't have been in the top 5 if you when in time 3 months ago probably would be Florida. And then the other program, and I'm leaning on Chad here. Chad does a great job traditionally with anybody in the state of Georgia. He says Stanford is the other school that may actually be South Carolina's biggest competition right now. So, I think it's those. I think it's those three. And we always talk about dominoes in quarterback recruiting, and most schools are going to take one per class. So I think it seems like Alabama right now. The word is it the Holstein kid, Eli Holstein? That may be the pick there. I think so. Alabama's in the top 5 with Dylan, but that may be their slot for quarterback for this class. So it just kind of feels like those are the 3 that are strong, the most strong here, and only time will tell sort of how it's going to play out among those, because I think, speaking of a process, from what Chad is saying, Dylan probably not done yet, going to move this forward and take officials to these schools as well.
Yeah, and the 5 visits to South Carolina, I mean, this kind of illustrates a broader point that we've talked about recently, Wes, and that is that, this is that class that South Carolina has been building toward as a new staff. Shane Beamer comes in a crazy position to be in because you're in the middle of a pandemic, losing season, brand new coach, brand new staff. A lot of even some of the holdovers you were keeping, they mostly leave, right? So a lot of turnover in the staff. And then you're trying to recruit during a pandemic. So for the fact that it was a new staff and you can't hit the road and you can't get kids to come on your campus for a long time when he was in Columbia, that really hurts your relationship building. And so a lot of the people we've talked to around the program immediately, when Shane Beamer got here, it was always kind of building towards, okay, the 23 and the 24 classes, those are really going to be the ones because you have the longest runway to build those relationships. I think when you look at the number of visitors that they've been able to attract, the number of higher profile kids they've been able to attract, just look at the spring game. Look at the fact that they've gotten Lonergan in. He's a national level recruit for 5 visits over a good span of time. I think that illustrates that broader point, right? That that longer runway has given them a chance to get more heavily in the mix with some talented prospects. So still a lot left to shake out at quarterback, Wes, from like a regional national perspective, all those dominoes. There's a lot of different moves out there that if this happens, this could happen. If this happens, this could happen. And we'll just have to kind of wait and see where those fall. But certainly South Carolina still in the mix very heavily there with Lonergan.
Yeah, it's a good point, man. I don't think any, we haven't put in any predictions yet for Lonergan to South Carolina. I still think that actually would be still a bit premature, to go ahead and say that. But we'll see. I think it'll be an interesting final, I don't know what it'll be, maybe a final few months of this process to see how it goes. By the way, shout out to our buddy Lou Antonelli tuning in on Facebook. Appreciate you, Lou. One day we're going to get you over onto the YouTube side, man, but we appreciate you joining in. He says, and maybe a lot of Gamecock fans are in the same mindset as Lou. He says, I have lost count of the welcome homes that have not gone public yet. How many are we still waiting to go public? Thanks, guys. Yeah, appreciate you, Lou. The number right now is 3. So 3 silents that are out there as far as having not gone public yet. And I will say this, and I said this on our board, I don't think you're going to have to wait as long on the most recent one as you've had to wait on the first 2, which are obviously still out there. So who will be the first public 2023 commit? We shall see. Will it be the guy who just committed privately? Or there's still an opportunity if somebody wants to jump up in there and be the first.
Here's your chance.
There's still a chance. So there's always, I don't know, man, I kind of feel like there's something a little bit special. Maybe I'm getting sentimental in my old age. There's something special about being the first to jump in. Like you will go down in history as being the first in that class. So now it does also, Chris, seem like there's been a little bit of a trend of whoever is the first one not ending up signing with South Carolina.
I couldn't remember. So Gunnar Stockton, obviously in 22, is that right? Was he the first?
I
lost it. Like, these are things, another old age thing. Like, I feel, man, I can't remember, but yeah, it seems like the past 2 classes, whoever was in first jumped off, or some of the first guys. You're exactly right. It's not, the 3 guys that are committed right now. It's not silently. It's not like what was it, like 7 last year or something at one point? Like, there were like 7 unaccounted for. I think we either had a graphic or you had some type of diagram explainer. You were like Kerry Matheson in Homeland, like trying to put it all to get the one that committed third was the 7th. I mean, it was bizarre. So not that bad.
No, and I feel like though it didn't. Those were revealed a good bit quicker though. I feel like.
Yeah, there wasn't that long of a. Yeah, it was just like it was that flurry.
Mm.
And so you had like 6 or 7 within the span of a few days. And so everybody's going, oh my gosh, I can't keep up with this. This guy committed, which one was he, etc. Yeah, Macadino podcast, Lavoisier Carroll, the first for 21. I do remember that. I think that was right.
Who?
And he found his way back.
Who was the linebacker from Lee County that was a very early commit in one of the classes?
It was like, oh my gosh.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Wes, I can pull some really random recruits.
Yeah.
And pull that for some reason, I'm not pulling it. I'm not.
But wasn't that a first commit for a class?
I think so. Evidently, I mean, you and I don't know. We're not.
I feel like there have been. I feel like there was a class where both first commits, like the original first commit and the second first commit. And what I mean by the other one wasn't the first commit anymore because there was a decommitment. So hey, maybe you don't want to be the initial commitment. Are we okay? So you only get counted as being the first commit if you're public, right? Like, are we
ultimately? Yeah. Like you don't go back and say, like, you don't look over the 2022 class, for instance. You don't go say Gunnar Stockton was the first commit, like, because it doesn't count anymore.
But no, I'm saying, do we count? So welcome home number 1 in the history when we look back on this class, welcome home number 1 goes public. Are they the official first commit of this class, or you're not official to your public?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, whoever says it first, public one publicly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's right.
Because it's not a commit till there's a tweet. That's my new rule. It's not a true commit until there's a tweet. Like, it's not acknowledged.
No, you're 100% right.
That used to not be the case, but now Twitter is ingrained in football recruiting culture. I feel like it's not a commit till there's a tweet. So
no, you're right.
Anyway, good weekend for South Carolina. We had a couple of people, where are the welcome homes, blah, 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 blah. But I think as we've gathered information, we talked about this a bit on Monday, Chris. Trey says, but Beamer tweeted, it's not a commit until the player tweets. They've got to acknowledge it publicly. But, man, I feel like as we've gathered information, talked to more guys, chatted with more guys, it really was a pretty strong spring game for South Carolina on the recruiting trail for the 23s and for just continuing to get a start with these 2024 prospects.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Wes, I think we've talked to all of them now, like the linebacker class that they brought in on that day. I mean, you look at like Dylan Stewart as an edge prospect from the DMV. It's his second visit in a matter of a few weeks. This is a national level kid, right? That's not saying South Carolina's going to sign him, but you get in that early for multiple visits. That's positive. You look at, I mean, who are the guys? You've got the kid from Marietta, Walton. You've got him. You've got Andrew Hines from Woodward Academy. You've got Mason Curtis from Tennessee. I mean, you had 3 or 4 linebackers that already have Power 5 offers from the 24 class. Wendell Gregory is the guy I'm referencing from Walton High School. So, I mean, many 24s, in-state guys included. Your guy Mazio Bennett. There's a bunch of them. So, yeah, not only the 23s, most of which have already been on campus, but again, you're getting some 24 guys on campus for the first time, which can kind of help kickstart your recruitment of those guys and lure them back ultimately during the season.
Yeah, Mazio kind of blowing up right now, man. Up to 13 offers. I was looking. I don't know if I realized all these came in the same month. But Georgia, Tennessee, have all stepped forward. Florida State, Miami have all offered in the month of April. So Mazio is a guy I think we all sort of knew, kind of thought the process was going to really take off for him, but that's going to end up being. I think we categorized it like this from the very beginning, saying that was going to be a really smart early offer for Justin Stepp and crew. South Carolina, the first Power 5 to offer him, Coastal, the first overall school to offer him. And we're seeing that happen right now. So I think good for Carolina to keep getting that kid on campus while these other programs are starting to jump in and starting to put their foot forward as well. If you're Carolina, you got to get in early. Like I think if you're going to land the big time prospects, you look at that state of South Carolina list for the class of 2024, and Cam Pringle, Josiah Thompson were not at the spring game, but you look back, they've been on campus many, many, many times before. I think Josiah was at Miami this past week, and then Cam, I didn't see if he made it in or not. Cam was scheduled to be at Georgia, I think, this past week. But still, they've gotten those guys on campus, I would say, countless times. And so you got to start to get in early if you're going to have any shot. Now, I'll be curious to see who ends up being the top prospect in the state. Is there a consensus on who the dude is for 2024 in state, especially now, as Travis Lee points out, that Jaden Bradford will not count as a state of South Carolina recruit, but another one worth mentioning, 2024, that he made it in. I still kind of consider him a Palmetto State kid, even though in the rankings he will count as a Florida kid being at IMG.
Well, and look, here's I think the solution for South Carolina is I'm curious, like you, who ends up being the top ranked in-state kid ultimately in that class. If you're South Carolina, your solution as well, let's just get all of them, right? I mean, all those guys that you just mentioned, the 2 offensive linemen, Bennett, Bradford, even though he's out of the state, you count him as an in-state guy. You land those 4, that's a really good core from that class. And will South Carolina land all 2, 3? We don't know yet. But we do know that, sometimes you can look even early into these recruitments, Wes, and you can look at a guy and say, I don't see that happening. Just the information points to it's probably not happening for the Gamecocks. Those 4 guys, they have a legitimate shot with each and every one of them, to varying degrees, but they're certainly in the game with all of them, which I think, again, that's a positive thing for the 24 class.
Yeah, and I think, man, to your point, like I would if I look at 2023, I think Monroe Freeling is a guy that probably a pretty big long shot for South Carolina. So you already look at it and you're like, okay, yeah, would South Carolina would they take him? Would they love to have him? Of course. Are they in the top, I would say, handful of schools, like the schools that are really, truly in the running, that top 2 or 3? I would say probably not at all based on what we hear. Now, you start to look at the other guys in that class, like a Marquis Anderson, you say, they're maybe the favorite. They may be like the school for him right now. So, I think you're right, man. You look at the guys they've offered for 2024 in state, and I think they're firmly in the mix with every in-state kid they've offered, even though that's not a huge number right now as far as the offers that have been sent out. Let's see, football-wise, y'all, as suspected, as we said would probably happen, several transfers this week. I don't have them right in front of me, so hopefully I don't miss anybody. But obviously, let's see, you had E.J. Jenkins right off top, Eric Shaw, Will Rogers. How many were there total, Chris? Are we up to 5
It's
or 6?
actually 6. I said 5, and I'd forgotten about Powers at that point
Rico
earlier
Powers,
today. So
which
Powers
and
was
I
6.
personally was already kind of I don't want
Right.
to say writing him off, but um,
Counting it. Yeah.
yeah, and then obviously you've got the defensive guys, Devontae Davis and Keem Green. Was that the 6? I think that was the 6, off the top of my head. But I think worth mentioning again that Chris, I'll use the word healthy. It is healthy for a program to have transfers out. And I think most fans realize that. I think most of your hardcore fans and your regular followers of the program. I am convinced it is your extremely casual fans that just aren't really paying attention to the day-to-day that hop on a Facebook comment and are like, what is up with these transfers? What's happening? It's healthy for guys if they are upperclassmen and they're not going to necessarily play to just move on and have their opportunity to go play somewhere that they can. And this has all been expected. This is all very healthy. And I think it's just part of the process, man.
It is. I've been stealing the heck out of your, your phrase that you made up about all transfers not being created equal. Like they're different. So there's like transfer portal mania, right? It's like a transaction based thing. So it's kind of like the NFL offseason or NBA trades. Like people love that stuff. And so if there's a tweet or a story about a dude transferring from anywhere, people are naturally, and I'll put myself in this, I'm same thing. Kid could be transferring from like Wyoming or, well, Isaiah Nayer transferred from Wyoming. He's going to be really good. Anywhere, make up some school. And I'd be like, oh, and you like start looking at the guy, whatever. But there's different reasons that they happen. So it's not always just a negative. If you've got this mass exodus of players who are going to be starters, frontline guys, there's an issue, right? But to your point that you always make, I mean, look, at South Carolina and at other schools, you're going to have like your 4th, 5th, 6th-year guys who maybe they're going to run scout team, not travel, or not going to play as much. And they're going to want to go play somewhere else, step down a level, step to group of 5, whatever. Nothing wrong with that. Totally understandable. You're also going to have some guys where maybe a fresh start's needed. Maybe there's some off-field stuff. Maybe there's some injury situations there. We have seen all of those recently at South Carolina, and we'll see them at other schools. And it actually kind of ties in, Wes, with Walter's question here in some ways about recruiting. Why would they commit, stay silent, and visit other schools? I think in recruiting, the silent commit thing now is not created equal either. Like just think into some situations that we've seen. Some guys kind of hold a reservation, and depending on the school they're committed to, maybe they're okay with that. Some guys have just a date set. Like they've got a date out there that they want to make their commitment. Some guys, something different, So it's definitely not a negative, to have. I agree with you. It is healthy to have them. And one more thing on Walter's point here, Arkansas 9 commits, South Carolina 0. Again, they got 3. You might as well, you could put them on the verbal commit list if you want, whatever. We have seen data from past recruiting classes at Carolina West and classes that have been very evenly ranked from year to year compared to each other. Sometimes those classes build on the front end. Sometimes there's a big bulk in the summer. Sometimes they build more toward the back end. Ultimately, it's really just how you finish. That's the most important thing rather than, maybe how many guys you've got right here, right now. If South Carolina is in August and they don't have a verbal commit public, I think we should revisit what we're talking about.
Yeah, and in my experience, there really is no correlation between necessarily early commits and if you're going to have a successful class. I mean, on some level, you're kind of It just depends on when the kids want to commit. When does every individual that you want as like your top targets to, when do they want to make a decision? So
Sure.
I think we'll see. We'll let it play out. I have a feeling this is like one of those educated guesses. I have a feeling, and I said this actually before in our Carolina Confidential. I said this before the most recent welcome home. I said I got a feeling that the momentum publicly is about to build because you can start to see the momentum slowly starting to build as far as the private stuff. Because again, I think the most recent one will be out pretty quickly, and then I think getting through May and into June is when you will really start to see. So the next month and a half, I think fans will be a little bit more happy about the public situation there with the recruiting class, and so we'll see. We'll certainly have complete coverage of that on Gamecock Central for all the South Carolina fans. Chris, big baseball series for the Gamecocks. I heard you on 107.5 today, just spitting huge baseball knowledge.
Oh yeah. You know it.
I was going to get Colin Taylor to join us. He's actually on the road to Auburn. I didn't realize he was making this trip, to be honest with y'all. But he is on the road to Auburn right now to bring you all complete coverage at 7 p.m. first pitch tonight for game number 1. And yeah, I've seen the baseball program sort of. It's like every week. Not every week, but certainly this week, there's been this trend of like, okay, we're still alive, right? Like it's not over. Like they've hung around just enough, taking 2 of 3 from Ole Miss, beating Winthrop, even though that was a close game throughout. Actually, worst stream I've ever seen, by the way, but that's another story. You're kind of getting to the point now, though, Chris, where like they've treaded water long enough, but you can't really afford to drop many more SEC series. Like if you're, I think they're 6-9 in SEC play right now. Just mathematically, if you lose 2 out of 3 this week, then you're at 7-11. You start getting to the point where you can't make up those losses. So, if you go take 2 out of 3 on the road and then you're sitting at 8-10 with everything that's happened to you, you're kind of, you've got some marquee wins in there, some marquee series wins. So I think every single, you don't need to be an analyst. Every single series on this way, all the way out from now to the end, are just going to be massive for this team. And I saw Mark Kingston speaking of phrases, he stole your phrase, and he said basically that they have completely eaten up their margin for error.
It's a good phrase. I mean, it's a really good phrase. I don't think it's overused yet, but I've overused it. Maybe not the general public yet. It might need to be put on the shelf soon. But no, you're right. I mean, the treading water analogy you made, it is definitely time. Like they're going to sink or swim now. Like there's no more treading. And obviously, which service was it, Wes? Somebody had South Carolina, I think, as first 4 out in the tournament. So certainly still alive. Like their bubble, for you.
Yeah, one of them has them barely in,
but so definitely bubble, right? Which makes it feel like basketball season around here, Wes. Bubble. And yeah, I mean, you look at what they've got left. They've got this series at Auburn, which is a top 25 series. Then you've got Bama at Founders. You've got a midweek at North Carolina A&T. You go at A&M, USC Upstate, Kentucky. You play Florida in your last series after a midweeker against Charlotte. So several SEC series left, but they're definitely going to have to make some headway here. They need to go out and win. It's hard to say like mathematically exactly what it is, but the majority of these series they need to go win. And I think really, Wes, this team is still on the bubble on the strength of them being able to go out and secure some signature series wins, right? You look at Texas, you look at Vandy, you look at the Ole Miss series. They've got that on their resume, but they've also got some not so good on their resume. So This is the time to kick it up a notch. Obviously, this team has caught really absolutely no breaks on the injury front, as we've seen. But they battled, they've scrapped, and we'll see what happens down the stretch. Big series against Auburn.
Yeah, and Auburn, a top 25 team. I mean, it seems like every single week you're facing a top team in the SEC. And Carolina's going to, this is one thing I do wish we had Colin on to talk about this. Carolina shifting their rotation again, man. It feels like it has been a constant shift this entire year, like just constantly tweaking. And, they get word earlier this week that Julian Bosnick, or they report it, they put it out there officially. I think this had sort of been brewing for a while. Bosnick officially out for the year. And, they obviously haven't had him at all this year. So they shifted it again. Brett Thomas to start Friday, which, will be a big opportunity for him. Obviously, it seems kind of like, Chris, that not that you give up the Friday game, not that you're just saying we don't care. They want to win, but what they've tried to do is slide their best pitchers to where they're facing their opponents number 2 and number 3. And what we've seen is that Noah Hall has emerged and stepped up when needed most and has been outstanding for this team. And that Will Sanders has been, well, Will Sanders. So I think by having Brett Thomas Friday, and then right now, I think it's going to be Noah Hall Saturday, and then Sanders on Sunday with Matthew Becker, who's been outstanding for this team as like their, hey, let's get him on the field twice in a weekend instead of once. Key reliever. That's not ideal to have to do all that shifting and to have to make it up as you go in some cases, but that's just where they are. They haven't been in a place to just say, here's our Friday guy. This is our SEC stud. Here's our Saturday guy. Here's our Sunday guy. We got 3 or 4 setup men and an amazing closer. They just haven't been in a position to do that. So I will commend them to an extent for continuing to try to tweak the thing to give themselves a chance, right?
Yeah, lots of tweaks. And, Brett Thomas is a guy that has talent. Colin Taylor, speaking of Noah Hall and Brett Thomas, Colin Taylor has stories on both on the front page of Gamecock Central. Really good story about Noah Hall, and then some more information on Thomas. Certainly, I needed to kind of refresh my memory and get up to speed on Thomas, and a guy that evidently turned down some potential pretty good pro money to go to South Carolina. So when you got a guy with that talent level, he can clearly, he's got some pitching ability, but just has not done it this season. And so he steps into that role. It is an interesting setup, Wes. It's almost like you kind of go, like you said, you kind of see what happens on Friday, and then you've got Saturday and Sunday with your best guys out there. You have Becker in reserve, who's really been, crafty and has really come along during the season. So certainly a great thing for this team that Sanders has been steady. He's been Will Sanders, like you said. And then obviously Noah Hall's emergence has been tremendous. So again, huge series, and the pitching is definitely one of the kind of subplots and one of the storylines to continue monitoring into the weekend.
So, like I said, I think we're going to have a shortened show here today. We did want to hop on and say what's up to y'all. How about this, Chris? You never know who is going to pop up at the South Carolina football facility. Have you seen yet who was there today?
I did.
Tim Tebow stopping by to check in on the Gamecocks. And doesn't it seem like it's just been a steady flurry of just random legends that have stopped by the program at times?
Yeah. Shoot, who does that make now? You got Tebow and Brett Favre, Tony Dungy, of course, was there. I don't know why Tebow was in town. Maybe he came specifically just to visit, but yeah, they've had a lot of
another run at the Fireflies, man.
There you go. Mike Singletary.
Yeah.
And Randy White, wasn't it? So they've definitely had some big timers roll through, which is cool. Obviously, Tim Tebow, a guy that talks a lot about culture and things of that nature. So, seem to be impressed by what Shane Beamer has going on in the building from that standpoint.
Yeah, that will actually be kind of interesting to see um, what the reasoning was. Um, so anyway, yeah, good stuff as always, y'all. Appreciate the questions, appreciate the support. Before we get out of here, Chris, if they haven't done their taxes yet, well,
Ooh,
you're in trouble. And if you didn't have tax ID before, you should have it now. Like before, we were telling you to ease your tax ID. Now I'm thinking if you don't have any, you should go ahead and get some
yes,
because Uncle Sam's going to be hitting you up. But the beautiful thing is you can still call our friends at Liberty Tax. They can still help cure your tax ID. And their locations are still open Monday through Friday. They can help you file an extension if you missed. And if you own a small business, or you need bookkeeping, payroll services for like LLCs, S Corps, C Corps, if you owe money to the IRS, any of these things, they can actually help you to maybe make it a little bit easier on you next tax time is what I'm trying to say. So give our friends at Liberty Tax here in Columbia a call, 803-462-5576. Again, 803-462-5576. We appreciate our friend Larry and the folks at Liberty Tax for helping us as a major sponsor here on GC Live. I think that's it, man. You got anything else, Chris?
yeah, man, good show, short show, but good information-packed show. Appreciate all the interaction, the questions, the comments from the listeners.
Yeah, good stuff as always, y'all. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll see if the baseball team can win a couple, and then be on the lookout next week. Josh Van exclusive interview through Garnet Trust via our friends at 360 Clean. 360 Clean supporting Gamecock student athletes like none other at this point through NIL. So we appreciate that, and we look forward to that. For Chris, I'm Wes. Y'all have a great weekend.